Salwa Eid Naser, one of the greatest athletes in history who quickly turned into one of the most controversial in history. Now, Naser is returning to the sport this year after sitting out on suspension for 3 years. Just before suspension though, she ran one of the most impressive 400-meter performances in track and field history with a time of 48.14 seconds, winning the 2019 World Championships. The current state of the women's 400 is in a bit of flux in terms of who's the best right now, and even which athletes are actually going to be running at the World Championships this year. And now with Naser returning, this simply adds another layer of complexity. So today, let's dive into the good, the bad, and the ugly of Naser's career, the implications of her returning to the 400 this year, and what might be possible for her looking into the future as well. Salwa Eid Naser had a quick and pretty unconventional rise in the sport. Born in Nigeria to a Nigerian mother and Bahrainian father, she chose to represent Bahrain internationally when the opportunity finally came up. Most of us are probably introduced to Naser in 2017 when she won the silver medal in the 400 at the World Championships in London. Prior to that though, she had already made the semifinals at the 2016 Olympics and also won gold at the 2015 World Youth Championships, now known as the U18 Championships. That silver medal in 2017 though was notable for a few reasons. She not only finished second place, but also beat out Shaunae Miller-Uibo, Allyson Felix, and Shericka Jackson, the Olympic gold, silver, and bronze medalists respectively. Additionally, Naser improved her personal best throughout every single round, ultimately running 50.06 seconds in that final. All this was done when she was still just 19 years old, which made her the youngest woman to ever win a 400-meter world championship medal. Now, I really want to highlight this point here. Naser was breaking up the standard of 400-meter running that had been in place for the past couple years. Felix had been a mainstay in the event since just about 2010, while Miller-Uibo was really coming into her own since about 2013. But both had been progressing for years, and most of us really knew that they were going to be top 400-meter runners. Felix would run a few fast 400s before she ran it for the first time at the World Championships in 2011. Miller-Uibo had competed for the University of Georgia and won the 2013 NCAA Indoors. So we all saw her greatness coming for years before her Olympic gold medal. Yes, Naser won World Youth, but for the masses of track fans, 2017 was a breakout year for her. And to be clear, many of you watching probably knew about Naser way before then, but she was far from widely known. Naser ended the year running 49.88 seconds at the Diamond League final, really solidifying herself as the next generation in the 400.
Well, I was training hard and I really hoped for the best. As I was coming here, I really hoped to do something, I get hard work and training and determination because I was determined. I was just training as hard as I used to.
Just a year later, in 2018, Naser won 10 out of 11 400-meter races, with 7 of those being 49-second performances. Her single loss came at the Monaco Diamond League, where she ran a personal best of 49.08 seconds, finishing just behind 2016 Olympic champion Shaunae Miller-Uibo. Enter 2019 and the next World Championships in Doha, Qatar. Now, this was Miller-Uibo, the defending Olympic champion, versus Salwa Eid Naser, the world silver medalist. They never actually got to meet over the 400 during the season, but both had run extremely fast times prior to Doha, which set them up for a high-quality head-to-head. But Miller-Uibo was still probably the pre-race favorite considering all of her accolades. But that World Championship 400 final turned out to be one of the greatest races in track and field history. Naser would pull an upset, winning gold in 48.14 seconds, the third fastest time in history, only behind the always questionable sub-48 times from Marita Koch and Jarmila Kotačvalova all the way back in the 1980s. Miller-Uibo, though, finished second place in an insanely impressive 48.37 seconds. That made her number 6 all time. And Miller-Uibo's reaction really summed up the situation, as she was simply in shock, considering she took more than half a second off her personal best and still lost. Naser, on the other hand, was also in a state of shock for what she did. A very quick rise to the top of the 400 with the fastest time in over 30 years. And she was still just 21 years old at this point. She was shaking up the sport, and though no one could have predicted this, we were all excited to see what was next. But as quick as she rose to the top, we would watch her fall from grace even faster. In June of 2020, Naser was banned from the sport for 3 whereabouts failures in a 12-month period. And if you follow track and field, you are probably very familiar with whereabouts failures, as they are unfortunately all too common. Now, I won't go into the very granular details of Naser's case. Check the link in the description for all the specific sources. But there were a couple notable, very questionable moments throughout the course of this case. First, these whereabout failures all occurred in the months leading up to the 2019 World Championships, right before she ran that 48.14. So that made pretty much everyone question that massive drop in personal best that she had. But then shortly after, Naser put out a statement saying, quote, "I only missed 3 drug tests, which is normal." Yeah, that's really not normal. Again, if you follow track and field, you are very familiar with whereabouts failures, and we unfortunately know that missing 3 tests is not only not normal, but it ends up in a ban. So I don't know exactly why she put out that statement. Finally though, one of Naser's whereabouts failures was dismissed apparently due to confusion with her location when the tester was trying to actually find her. Now, if you followed this specific story when it happened, it was super sketchy and it was really hard for almost anyone in the sport to truly believe it. But after another missed test in January 2020, Naser was eventually actually banned for 3 years from the sport, missing the Olympic Games and the World Championships. But none of her times were removed and her gold medal from 2019 wasn't stripped from her, so she kept all those accolades. Regardless though, with Naser out, that allowed Shaunae Miller-Uibo to win both golds at the Olympic Games and the 2022 World Championships. Pretty much essentially unchallenged, right? And that really cemented Miller-Uibo as easily the greatest 400-meter runner of this generation. Now, I unfortunately still have my own questions about Naser's whole situation. And I really say unfortunately because I truly never want to question an athlete and what they've actually done on the track. I think we were all pretty excited to see her time of 48.14 when it flashed on the clock in Doha, really anticipating the matchup of Naser and Miller-Uibo at the Olympic Games. But because of all the strange instances I noted earlier, her comments right after, and the issue with the location situation, I still look at this whole thing with a raised eyebrow. I mean, how can I not? Interestingly enough, Miller-Uibo also had questions about the whole situation as she took to Instagram and released a statement, a pretty strong statement. She said, quote, "My concern is not just with the athletes missing 4 tests and having charges dismissed, it's with the International Federation and the integrity unit that was assembled to protect this sport. In my opinion, the AIU were caught with their hands in the cookie jar. Caught with their hands in the cookie jar. Because Miller-Uibo finished 2nd place to Naser at the World Championships, if the charges with that one whereabouts failure were not dismissed, she would have actually gone on to become the gold medalist. Yes, 48.14 was crazy, but if we saw 48.37 on the clock in Doha, I'm sure we would have still all gone crazy. Also, if you don't think Miller-Uibo could have run that time without Naser in the race, just look at the Tokyo Olympics, where she literally ran 48.36 without Naser. So she's definitely more than capable. Will I always have questions though? Probably. Am I a bit disappointed with the story? Absolutely. But will complaining and commenting do anything about it? Honestly, unfortunately, I doubt it. And personally, we gotta accept the process, at least for now, right? It is what it is. The way I look at it is shifting my questions and disappointment into excitement and anticipation into what's to come this year and even beyond. Again, I'm always gonna have questions, I'm always gonna be disappointed, but let's refocus our attention and see what's gonna happen in the 400. Now, fast forward to February 2023, and Naser's ban is now over, clearing the way for her to compete once again. As I noted at the top, Naser returns with the women's 400 meters, arguably in a really tough state of flux. A bunch of women are all running well, but some of the best women may not even be running the event at the World Championships this year. Now, the biggest story is that Shaunae Miller-Uibo is taking the year off to start a family. So with her being the 2-time Olympic champion, defending world champion, that immediately cleared the field of the top 400 meter runner. After that though, you have a bunch of women who are pure 400 meter runners all vying for the top spot. Marlene Polino is probably the best of the bunch, having won Olympic and world silver, as well as running 48 seconds for the first time at last year's Diamond League final. You then have a whole mix of Sade Williams, Cofield, Claver, McLeod, Adeleke, Diggs, and a whole bunch of other women who I haven't even mentioned here yet. But these may not even be the best of the best in the 400 right now. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, Femke Bol, and Britton Wilson, they have entered the conversation as hurdlers more than capable of dominating in the open event. McLaughlin-Levrone has run 50.68 seconds over hurdles, which would have finished 7th place in that Eugene 400 meter final. And she has run the fastest 4x4 split since Allison Felix. Femke Bol ran the 400-meter world indoor record of 49.26 this year, while Britton Wilson ran the number 2 indoor time of 49.48 as well. Now, it's still a question on if these 3 women will actually run the 400 meters at the World Championships, or if they'll just stick with the 400 meter hurdles. But at the end of the day, all of this presents a new challenge for Salwa Eid Naser. In the last 3 years that she's been away, essentially a new generation of 400 meter runners have entered the event and will force Naser to pick up from where she left off, even with the absence of Miller-Uibo from the 400. So what should we expect from Naser this year? Well, first, she left the sport with a personal best of 48.14 seconds from that legendary Doha race. But we really need to put a bit of context into Naser as a whole athlete. She's not really a true 48-second runner in a sense. Yes, she's run 48 seconds, but there definitely needs some context. After that 48.14, her best 400 meter times are 49.08 and 49.17, while the rest of her times are in the mid to high 49-second range. Now, don't get me wrong, that's insanely impressive and pretty much better than anyone running right now. But compare that to someone like Miller-Uibo, who has 3 sub 49-second runs, as well as 3 other times at 49.11 or better. So what's my point there? We shouldn't expect Naser to run 48 seconds on command when she returns. She's more of a true consistent 49-second runner. So what do I think she'll run this year? Well, my prediction is that if Naser runs sub 51 seconds in her first 400 meter race back on the track, she is definitely in the hunt for gold without question. Why? Well, look at her first 400 meter runs in May in the past 3 years of her career. 2017, she ran 50.33. 2018, 50.51. 2019, 50.65. So getting into that 50-second range means she'll be just about where she was before her ban. And to be clear, that gold medal conversation applies regardless of who is running the 400 this year. I don't care if McLaughlin, Ravoni, Bol, Wilson, and everyone else is running. If Naser runs 50 seconds in May, she is in gold medal conversation and is definitely in the hunt. Let me repeat, conversation, not gold medal favorite. Now, anything slower than that, and I'll definitely have to reserve my predictions for a little bit closer to the World Championships. But anything faster than that, like let's say she runs 49 seconds in May, she would be the gold medal favorite at that point, in my personal opinion. So let's be clear. But it's so hard to predict what an athlete can do, especially after such a long time away from the sport. 3 years in track and field is essentially an eternity. Remember, Paulino, Femke Bol, Britton Wilson, Talitha Diggs, Cofield, Claver, none of these women were nearly the names that they are in the sport now. What's really interesting is this is kind of a full circle moment where Salwa Eid Naser was the rising star back in 2017, shaking up the event for all the vets, right? But now, Naser is the quote-unquote vet, and she'll have to contend against all this new 400 meter talent just to maintain her spot. And despite my own predictions, it really still does make me wonder, can Naser even get close or maybe even surpass her 48.14 personal best? Can she actually win a World Championship gold medal again this year? And honestly, did Naser really deserve to come back after her questionable whereabouts situation? That's for you to let me know. Thanks for watching.